welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing a different type of YouTube video. I'm really excited because I have Natalie here with me today. I have talked a lot on my Instagram about baby sleep training, like in stories and whatnot, and a lot of you ladies have asked me a ton of questions about what I used, what I did, what program I went by and all that stuff, and I was literally like, the baby sleep trainer, which is Natalie right here. I had a toddler, and until I had found you, I did not even know that that existed. Sleep training for toddlers. And when I say toddler, I'm talking about a 3-year-old. So I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm really happy to be here.
Just go over the process and all that stuff.
We were kind of chatting before about what caused you to reach out and how you felt like things had not been great when he was a baby, but you knew why.
Yes.
And then things got sort of better. Did you even think about like that there was a coach or someone that you could reach out to for this?
No, I knew there was sleep training, and I knew there were books you could read, and there were like night nurses, right? You know, and all that kind of stuff. But I think I kind of fell into the trap of like first baby, sort of like, it's okay, I'll let him co-sleep or I'll let him do this. And we didn't even really do co-sleeping. It was that, to give some background, my son, Rion, he had a really bad dairy allergy and he had acid reflux. So, I mean, it was like taking it to the next level for the first 3 to 6 months, which I think is normal.
Yeah, working out a lot of stuff during the early time, for sure.
Exactly. And then right around 18 months, I think he started sleeping through the night, which was fantastic. At that point, I had a newborn with my daughter. So I was definitely less lenient in terms of like, okay, I need to tend to her, so I need help. My husband travels a lot. How's this gonna happen? And he started sleeping through the night, which was great. We did try the cry it out method. I don't know what clicked. He just started sleeping through the night.
Awesome.
He was still in a crib. We went to Hawaii when he was around 2.5, 3.
Happens a lot, like a trip or an illness will totally like,
and boom.
And then something happens when they're a toddler and it like all goes out the window.
Well, I was gonna say, I actually, if you're looking at the bright side, I was actually really happy that I found you when he was a toddler, because not to say that there aren't things that can happen post-toddler phase, but I feel like because we went through all of the newborn and that middle like teething and all that kind of stuff, he has, you know, it's been 3 years and he has stuck with this, and I can't even tell you what an amazing sleeper he is, and I seriously owe it all to you.
Oh,
not kidding.
Well, you did all the work, so even though you found me and I was able to guide you, you should really like pat yourself on the back, and him too. So a lot of sleep coaches will train toddlers. You're right that it isn't a really popular thing to discuss, I think, because a lot of issues have either worked themselves out to that point or they are more manageable. And I think what every family can tolerate is different. In some families, you know, my children are in elementary school, one's about to be in middle school, and I know that my daughter still, both my children still have classmates who require a parent to lay with them until they fall asleep. And again, this is like your family, your home, whatever you feel comfortable with. There's nothing wrong with your child. There's nothing wrong with your family co-sleeping or bed sharing or whatever. However, I think different families have different dynamics, and some of them struggle with the intensity of like needing that interaction from a parent, right? And so the really cool thing that I kind of love about working with toddlers is that it's highly formulaic, out of necessity. So when you're working with an infant, and people have like, if you have a baby, you probably have like a general understanding of how sleep training goes, but there's like timed, and then you're in there and you're like touching them, and it's like this highly emotional, you know, thing, and then they eventually get it, right? And there tend to be a lot of hiccups with infants too, you know, they get a tooth or they transition naps, there's a lot, right? But when they're toddler, it's all behavior based. So, and it has a lot to do with the like power dynamic within the family and the parents. And, you know, sometimes even like, you'll get in a power dynamic with like a colleague or a friend or a boss or a sibling or family member, and you realize you can step out of your like, yeah, this is what's happening. I need to change my reaction because they're reacting to me.
Right.
Same thing when we're talking about toddlers.
And I think that was a big reason as to why I even called you in the first place and researched you. I literally Googled and I found Natalie, and I was like, we're gonna give this a try. So I definitely want to go over the whole process, which we will, like what my personal process was. But as far as the impetus for calling you, it was exactly what you just said. It's that I realized that the way I was acting towards my son especially was I was fatigued. I was extremely tired. I had a newborn with me, and my husband was traveling a lot. When he'd come home, we just wouldn't get good night's sleep, you know, and it was like, we were talking about, I was getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, which I think is normal for moms in general, especially new moms.
Have to be.
Right, it doesn't have to be.
It is typical, yes.
But it was broken, and I was like, it's broken not because of the newborn, because I made sure Mila was like sleeping really good early on. It was because of him, and And because of that, I also noticed he was extremely tired. And when I noticed that, I was like, he's not sleeping at night. He still takes naps that are really long. It's because he needs to get that sleep.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of families or a lot of women will reach the breaking point when they realize that it's not really, like, they feel awful. I tell my families, and this is so true, like, your children need more sleep than you need, and they need the sleep more than you do.
Right.
So like they do all the same things that while they sleep that we do. They like repair their bodies, they deal with their emotions, but they're also like growing and learning. It's like absolutely true. They can only grow while they're in their deepest stages of sleep. They can only learn like during their lighter stages of like REM sleep. And so you having a really severe sleep issue, it's really like having, you know, like an eating issue, right? And even though the training sometimes, I think parents worry that it's going to be way more unpleasant than it usually ends up being. And sometimes it's kind of unpleasant, but it's hardly ever worse than what you're dealing with before you come to me.
People ask me like what when I refer you to them. And by the way, like I paid Natalie. It wasn't
I didn't even know she.
Yeah, it was not like
a
a
second
collab
time
situation.
I've worked with an influencer. I probably have worked with more influencers than I realized because I always
it was
always
completely
work with my families this way.
And it was and it was one of those things I out of desperation Googled. And it wasn't even like I asked someone, I just Googled and I found you. You came at the top of the list. All the reviews were great. And here's the funny part is that when I contacted you, you're based out of Utah?
Actually, so LA and Oregon, Portland.
LA and Oregon. Anyway, she's out of state most of the time. And I was like, oh, well, if you're out of state, how are you going to come to my house and sleep train my child? She's like, well, that's not how it works. It works with an actual consultation with you and your partner, you and your husband for an hour. And we're going to talk about
via video conference.
Right, via video conference. We're going to talk about what your needs are, which we had established on email, and then we went over them. And then she laid out a game plan, and I was like, "What?" And I think the session, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But I was like, you know what? I'm desperate. We're going to try this. We sat down, and I think the biggest piece of advice you gave me right off the bat was make sure you and your partner are on the same page. Like you have to have the support because there are going to be, in my experience, obviously everybody's different, but it was only 2 to 3 nights that was.
It typically goes pretty quickly for toddlers.
Right.
Way more quickly than for infants.
I mean, wow, life-changing. But 2 to 3 nights where you're like, oh my God. And you need that support from your partner to be like, are we doing the right thing? We're doing the right thing. I need your help to tell me, go back to your room, let him be, whatever it is. And so that is, I think, my biggest takeaway is the support from your partner. And then 2, it really is, I know it sounds weird, but it's like that whole idea. If you hire a nutritionist or a coach that's going to tell you, like, you're here and you want to lose this much weight, this is what your plan is. Stick with it and it will happen. And this is actually easier than that because with weight loss, you're thinking about food you're taking.
I think sleep training is much easier than weight loss.
I didn't believe it. But it is. It absolutely
At least for toddlers, I would say.
Yeah.
It's much easier.
I couldn't agree more. And I think people have this misconception that you can only train babies and infants. And also toddlers have a mind of their own. They can get out of the bed and stuff. It's true. But I think that there's also all of these things and tactics that you use and employ that I think are just like amazing. So
yeah, I mean, sleep training for any age is very, very counterintuitive. And sometimes I'll tell my families, especially with younger babies, I'll say during a certain part of my consultation, I'll say, if what I am telling, if during this moment, it's the moment that we were like transitioning to putting them down, I said, if what you're doing right now feels counterintuitive, then you'll know you're doing the right thing. Because the whole process is, and I really don't like to be apologetic about what I do. I don't like to use euphemistic terms. I like to respect everyone, including the child who's going through this, and be like very open and honest. And I think our parenting, there are a lot of different parenting styles in the United States. And maybe a lot of your viewers aren't in the US, and I think in other countries it can be both ways. Like everyone knows what to do and everyone parents the same way. You don't have a lot of liberty. In the US there's so many different kind of parenting styles, but then it breeds a tremendous amount of insecurity, which then breeds judgment, which we all know is not something we need to talk about. But that's like, and so I think women hold themselves back from doing it. Jay, I was asking you earlier how your partner felt about it, and you were like, he was like, why don't we, usually the dads, sometimes, but it's usually not the dads that have the issue, it's the moms that are like, oh my God, like, or they don't want to tell their friends are doing it.
Right, what are they going to think of me? Are these moms going to think I'm like this crazy monster?
Right.
Exactly. But honestly, I have friends on both spectrums. I think I fall right in the middle. Like, it's very Libra of me. It's like I have the very stern parents that are disciplined and like, you know, at 3 months even, we're sleep training and that's it. And then friends that are like, no, I co-sleep, I still do. And that's the way it is. And I think I fall in the middle where it's like, I want them to be trained. I don't want to necessarily like push them to do this, but I think I love that idea of that it's counterintuitive.
It just really doesn't have anything to do with anybody else but you, your child, and your
So
partner.
let me ask you, what is your take like when people come to you and they're like, I can't like have my child cry it out, or I can't follow this? What is your...
Well, I think what's always funny is when someone will be like, is your method cried out? Because I'm not really into that. And I'll be like, all forms of sleep training are cried out. It comes from a misconception and a total like misunderstanding of what sleep training is, because people don't really have a really sound understanding. And even though we're going to be talking about toddlers, and it still applies to toddlers, this is really when, I guess we're talking more about younger children, but across the board. It really is true, actually. Like the root of like almost all sleep problems with children is an inability to fall asleep independently. Whether you have a 3-year-old who's like coming in and out of the room a million times, or a baby who needs a pacifier. And the crazy thing is, especially when talking about younger children, it actually doesn't matter what their sleep association is. It is no more difficult to train a child who co-sleeps than it is to train a child who only requires you to walk in and put the pacifier in their mouth and walk out. It's not any harder, right? So people are like, oh my God, like I co-sleep it. No, it's not. It's the same, because your child, it's a lot like riding a bike. And one of the unique aspects of baby sleep trainer, that's the same baby sleep trainer method, that's the same for toddlers and babies, is that you eliminate all the sleep props. Like everything that your child needs that you need to give them to sleep, we get rid of it right away on the first night of training. And so it's just like doing that quickly and setting up the new boundaries. Kids tend to do very, very well when there is an established set of boundaries. But it's such a counterintuitive process when it comes to toddlers. That's why I think you were like, wait, there's sleep, what? Like, this is not even something we talk about culturally. We do talk about it for babies. We don't even talk about it for toddlers at all.
Well, I want to walk through the process now. You sat down with me and my husband via Skype, and we talked about what to do. And our issues were that my son would wake up every hour, 2 hours, come from his bedroom. At this time he's 3, so we moved him from a crib to a bed, and he would come out, he'd need us, we need to fall asleep with him. Even when we slept with him, it was just like it was very interrupted, broken sleep.
And that's one super important thing to emphasize is, I think that let me say 2 things. First, once again, whatever works for one's family, no one should come away from this video thinking that if you're choosing to co-sleep and that's what makes you happy, whether there's interrupted sleep or not, that you're harming your child.
Right.
It is your baby. As a mother, you are entitled to, that's your baby. That's what you get. You get to do whatever you want. No one should tell you differently, as long as you're not hurting the child.
I love that you're saying this.
I really, truly, genuinely, 100% believe this. I am like very adamant about people like respecting one another. So I want to say that because a lot of what I'm going to say after that might make someone who feels this doesn't resonate with them, make them feel like they're doing something wrong. You're not. But if you have this problem, and so the second thing I was going to say is you were co-sleeping. People are like, why don't you just co-sleep?
Right.
It's because they want you to co-sleep. No. Like, people generally, like studies show, humans don't actually sleep very well. And you know who sleeps the worst when there's more than one person sleeping is generally the female, like the adult female sleeps the most poorly. So you were co-sleeping. There was nothing left for you to do to solve that problem. It's not like you were resisting or holding back doing something that came naturally to you to address the issue.
Right.
So if you are having that problem, you are not alone. And that can feel very, like, so terrible.
Yeah,
and
you
feel like
helpless.
you don't have options. Yes, you feel very impotent.
Yes,
or not
just like what is going on, like what is left here. So
okay, so you've got him coming out.
I got him coming out.
Frequently, you're trying to co-sleep. That's not working. When you are sleeping, generally, it's just really, really disrupted.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have another baby that obviously is still nursing, and there's things happening, which I was like, I need to tend to that. One of the first things that you had told us to do, which I love, and I still have, and now, mind you, Rion is 6, and this is from when he was 3, and I don't even know why he's kept it, but this thing to me is like, I don't know, I love it. Every time I look at it, it makes me so happy, because this little chart, which guys, I just went to the Dollar Tree, and you literally, Natalie was like, okay, this is what you're doing. What do we call this?
I actually don't even, it's called a sticker chart. I don't even have an official name for it.
That's
funny.
But it needs to be called something. You do, because it was just this thing, and she was like, you're going to do 7 days of the week, and we're going to highlight things that he does, and it could be as mundane as brushing your teeth to as some where he's like, did you make your bed? You know, whatever it is that you want him to do. So I asked him, like, I actually had him make this with me. I asked him, I said, what are things that you liked?
The important thing to keep in mind about this chart when you're making this is that you really want to start with like dinner time, and then it says right here, sweet eating dinner, and then you're going to proceed through the remainder of the routine. And
that's right. It was nighttime focused because this was right before bed. I do remember that now. It's great. And I had this plastered right in front of the kids' like dinner table. So especially for him, because he was the only one that understood this, it was like eating dinner. Did you eat dinner? Great. Let's put a sticker there. And then, did you drink your milk? Did you take your bath? All of this stuff. And he was so excited. I mean, it sounds crazy and it sounds so like, duh. Like, who, you know.
So the reason we do this is because we use sticker charts a lot for rewards. So you fill up the entire sticker chart, you get a present at the end. I don't like to use that method with children because then you're teaching them to only do it for a little while.
Right.
And then what? Or either there always has to be a reward, which is not how life works, or it loses its what's the term?
Like luster.
Yes,
or
right.
Like novelty.
Yes, it's novelty.
And it is actually the biggest piece of advice I've taken away from you, which is that you do not want to end up with a reward, like an object. And even then,
the reward is sleep. No.
Right. No, it is. Actually, it is. And they don't know that right now, but you know. But also, I think I translated that into even like a reward can be an experience. So I do more of like, you get to come to the grocery store, even though it's not, you know, but I'm like, we get to go together, and you can pick up your snack for the week, you know. But I that's a big piece of advice that I got that I think is invaluable, and I've taken that with me for years. So this little baby here was phenomenal, and I left it at night. I would move it from their dinner table.
I tell parents to like carry it with them around the house.
She did, and
like
I
just
literally
put stickers on, because the sticker is a reward.
Exactly.
They're like, that's the positive reinforcement.
And I was so desperate, you guys, that it was one of those things where I like took every single thing Natalie said, and I, by verbatim, I'm not even kidding, I did exactly what she said. The next day I went and I made this.
Formulaic.
Yeah, it's very formulaic. I put it near the dinner table when it was eating dinner, drinking milk, doing that, and then I took it upstairs to his room, and when he took a bath, brushed his teeth, he read, put on his PJs, kissing mom and dad goodnight, and making his bed. He was very excited that he got to do those, and the days that he didn't get to do it, it was...
Because he didn't have the chart,
No, like the day he didn't get to do it because he didn't.
Oh, so that's what I was going to hit on. So one of the other things that we discuss when we have a consultation or we work together is that there's going to be times, so this is probably an okay example, right? Brushing teeth, it looks like they did this however many days, but for whatever reason, either he didn't get them all or he has like an empty spot, right? So children can be understandably combative. Sometimes they're very bright and precocious, and they're like, I don't want to, maybe they're great Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're like, no, I don't want to do this because I want to delay, or they start to dilly-dally. And so there's methods that we talk about in the book, or if we work together, on how to manage that, because basically, like, so the really huge takeaway for this for parents is that you imagine that we're going to combine two metaphors here, that you are like a flight attendant, but you're on a train, and that train is not stopping. It's not stopping. It's going to keep going, and your kid can get on the train and can keep doing all the things, or it's going to leave them behind. You're going to move on. You actually put the stickers on generally. Maybe, I wonder if you only did 2 stickers.
I think he might have gone in afterwards and started like...
Okay, so anyways, the basic concept here though is that if like, even if your child doesn't comply, the stickers still go on the chart, they just can't go back to them. So then they just like miss their opportunity to do whatever, because they're used to using that as a power dynamic. They're used to saying, well, I don't wanna, you know, and then...
And he did look back. Like, I think we did it for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, however long. I mean, the sleep training, I'm not kidding, took just that 1 week.
But some kids will get really into this chart and keep doing it if it works. Like, who cares?
So we let it go for, I think, a month, which is why we see the 4 stickers. And, you know, I kind of, like, as soon as it started working, I was like, I'm good. But he still wanted to do it, so I let him keep it upstairs, and he did it. And, yeah, when he saw that this had a blank spot, it was like, well, how come I didn't? I'm like, I don't know. You didn't do it that day. So that's what it reflects.
This is also natural consequences. This is all, I like to mimic like real life. Like this is life. And these are skills that we just like are not, this is just not present in our culture. Yeah. With like our kids and our other people, you know, like accountability and stuff like that. That's what this is. That's really, really important to me. And that's what's informed us. One of the main problems families will come to me with is like a whole lot of drama at bedtime. I don't recall if that was an issue you had, but a lot of like screaming or crying or running out of the room. They won't even lay with you, or they take 2 hours to go to sleep. So this helps to put a child into like a positive mindset going into sleep training. So you're not just like, well, dinner's done, now we're gonna move on to like the sort of actual sleep training, which happens at bedtime. I have everyone do it, because even if it wasn't an issue, if you had just jumped into like the new bedtime routine, he would have been like, what the, and been really, really upset. This is like, he's so into this.
Right at 3, I was like, I don't even know if he's gonna get this. And he totally did. He got it, and which I loved. Now, the second part of the training was at night, obviously during sleep. And this is the part that I think is probably the hardest.
Sometimes it's hard, but again, not harder than what you're doing before.
So the first thing we did was we got a lock for the outside of the door. And I know that sounds crazy, and I know when I was doing it, I felt like a monster, but we got a lock on the outside of his door, and that was because in the event we needed to be able to close the door and lock him.
We need to be able to turn the bedroom into a crib.
Right.
Which is the really, like, people have no problem putting their baby down, usually in a crib, especially if they're doing sleep training, but all of a sudden now that your child is in a bed, the concept that you would like confine them to a space is like, yes, but that's why.
Right.
It's not crazy, right? Like, it's hard to say it, but the reality is and you don't necessarily even have to go there, because confining them to that space, that's the currency that you're creating with them.
Right. And I personally now still have that lock on there, because that's his timeout. Like, well, you can't come out, and I will lock the door. Obviously, you don't abuse that, but it was something that I was like, wait, when you told me you're like, get a lock for the door, I was like, wait, I'm sorry, what?
There's a few different approaches you can use, including a lock, depending on like your personal situation.
He could easily open the door on his own from the inside, and he was very strategic about getting everything out, and you were like, the lock might be the best option, and I was like, it's gonna be the best option. Again, I was at a point where I was very desperate, and I didn't even want to try him not being able to. I was like, I just want to do it all. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it right. Like, this is it.
And you also don't like
Fort Knox.
Push him in and like lock the door. Right.
Exactly.
We're not doing that.
Exactly. So we got the lock and we put it on the outside. Then this other concept, which I'll show you guys like in a demo, which I really loved. It was this idea of the door, which this concept to me in the beginning was like, what are you talking about? But he goes to bed, we tuck him in, and we leave the door open.
And we tell him, you're probably using a toddler clock potentially, because that's an element of it.
Exactly.
So you have to have some visual way to explain to this child, you need to stay, here's how you know. And again, depending on your situation, this is where it can be very customized, but like, you have to have some way that the child is like, my instruction is to stay in until this time. So you're probably using a toddler clock.
The one that turns green when it's time to, or red means stay in bed, and green means you can go.
Right.
And so we had that.
And the door's open.
Door's open, and I was like, stop, this is not gonna work. So of course we put him to bed, and on the floor, the door's open, and we had about quarters of tape. And so the tape is basically
on the floor.
Exactly. For each time he exited his room to come and get me or dad, we would close the door to that next level of tape. And there were 4 chances, I think, total. So it was open. Okay, you came out of the room. I'm gonna put you back in your bed. Good night. I love you. There was no talking. I remember it was really important.
And you're not even like, I mean, the thing I often tell my families to say to their child is like, I really hope you choose to stay in bed till the light turns green in the morning.
And
because who's in control of the situation?
Right.
Not you. It's your child. Nothing is going to happen to them that they don't want to happen.
Yeah.
Because it's all up to them.
That's true. And
that's a really important aspect of this for parents to understand.
And this is when it's really important that you and your partner, right, are in sync.
At least understanding like what we're agreeing to, and like what are the basic concepts, and have read the plan or the book or whatever, and like understand what.
Because trust me, there were, me and my husband would go back to the room, and then we would just talk amongst each other as he was either crying or doing something. And that again was literally only the first night. Then he came out of the room, and we moved. I said, Rian, you come out again. Each time you come, eventually in 4 times, the door is going to be completely closed. And when it's closed, it will be locked.
And we usually show them like as before you put them down,
right? You
know, close the door here, close the door, right? And they're like, really? Are you gonna do this? And you're like,
So I closed it, and then
because he kept coming out.
He kept coming out, and each time, and he was the first night was hard. He cried, and I was like, honey, I love you. I will see you in the morning, and that's it. Put him out. Came out again. Third. The first night we had to lock the door, and we locked the door, and he cried for about 1 hour. Cried for an hour, and me and my husband, we were on each other's team, but it's like, well, we should have done that.
You're probably texting me also, I suspect, because I think that's, so cool to like have someone else that you're talking to.
And it was crazy because this was a part of that whole concept of like, you're a sleep trainer, you're not in my house, you're helping me, you're coaching me, and she was like, for that first week when you're doing this, I am at your beck and call. Text me,
Right.
call me. Let's talk even while you're going through this. I texted her and you would text me.
As long as I'm awake and I'm not like physically incapable of responding, I respond to my clients all my waking hours every day, no matter where I am.
And you checked in on me, which was great, you know? And so that first night happened and I was like,
And he fell asleep.
He fell asleep. And he got a sticker the next day.
And how, I don't know if you remember this, but this is something I would like you to emphasize, is do you remember how he was acting or how he felt, or was he acting weird?
Not at all. It's exactly like, and I think as you go through motherhood and parenthood and all that stuff, you realize like all this stuff, it's not like, it does not leave this impression on your child.
So scared that like everything we do is traumatizing them, when the only thing that's doing real damage in a lot of these cases is not sleeping. Like that's really hard on these kids.
And I remember that first night happened, and I think it's a process in general, right? Like all of a sudden he's not going to just stop napping because he's catching up on a lot of sleep. This had been going on for about a year and a half. So the next day, it got to the last
This is for a nap or bedtime?
This is for bedtime. Yeah, bedtime. And at this point, I don't think he was napping during the day at school. It was only on weekends.
We do a similar thing
for napping.
Using this for napping, but you're going on bedtime, okay?
And so we closed it to the end, and he was like, no, don't close it. I'm not. He knew that the door closed meant locked. And so he didn't, and he slept through the night. And I was like, what
Because the only way that you'll ever be successful in compelling a toddler to do what you want them to do is if they want to do it. So you have to create a reason that they want what you want, which is for them to go to sleep and stay in bed.
I was blown away. So then I'm like, okay, third night happened, and it was like less and less. And literally, I'm not kidding, 7th night, I did not wake up once, and he slept through the night, and that was it. And that has changed since then. 3 years ago, he has slept through the night. And can I tell you the funniest thing? And I always think about, you're always in the back of my head, even though this is the first time we're actually meeting. We can have parties in our house. We can have, like, once that guy is asleep, he is asleep, and he always asks me, he's like, Mom, please don't close the door. He just does, and it's not that he has anything against it, because he loves it pitch black. We don't use the light trainer anymore. He likes it pitch black. I can close the door, but preferably, it's always like, Mom, can you just keep it closed halfway? It's almost like he took
that's because, and then, I mean, I tell families that like they'll go out of town or something will happen, they'll stay with grandma or whatever, and it like hits the rails again. You can always go back to this. It's always the same concept. The child always remembers. Because you have to, again, there has to be some currency, some way, you know, and if you can get over the concern around the confining, like, and understand, like, the tool, and that if they don't want it to happen, then it's up to them to, like, you have to let these things happen to your children when they choose them for themselves.
What were the other alternatives aside from?
So you can use a Post-it, you can use Post-it notes on the door instead of the lines on the floor. You can use a cover on the inside of the doorknob. Sometimes people struggle with that. If they have a lever, sometimes kids are just, like, very strong, and they, like, pry those things off. But usually, I don't recommend using a gate. It's really important that the door is closed. You don't want it's not about like, so it's not only about them not being able to leave, it's about them like not being able to, you know, interact, right? Like now the door is closed, and now it's basically like one big long timeout. Sometimes what is super funny is that kids they'll do this, and they'll throw a fit and tantrum, of course, because you're not interacting with your kids in between. Like unless they like step over the threshold of their door, you could, like, you know, she's got his room up there, like he could stand there as long as he's in his room, and you're like, stay in your room, awake, asleep, you just have to stay in your room, right? And eventually they'll go to sleep. But sometimes they'll fall asleep with their head in the threshold, like they'll lay on the floor because they don't want the door closed, and that's fine. Like, that's totally cool. They have to develop their own coping mechanisms.
Okay, and then let's just talk about success rate, because I know that obviously, like anything, you have to, it's not like you're paying for a service and all of a sudden it's like done. It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed, but you have to follow the process, right?
So I don't ever, like, families will ask me if I have some sort of guarantee, and I tell them I don't for 2 reasons. One, I do a really good job of screening my clients. So I don't let people hire me without me telling them everything that's going to happen, like very similar to this conversation, and be like, okay, do you understand? Yes, I understand what I'm committing to. Then once I get that commitment, they're a lot more likely to be successful, because the number one indicator of success is the parent, not the child. And then every child is different, right? So let's say you have a toddler who successfully falls asleep independently, sleeps through the night, but you know, they really, really struggle to sleep in, let's say, past 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. That's a really difficult time for children to sleep early in the morning. And so, you know, I would still say that that child is successful. If they're doing their absolute best, they're still being successful, even if their peer might be
waking up at 2 hours later.
Exactly. Or what if maybe one child, like, fusses a bit before they go to sleep most times, or they grouse about it and they're still upset, but they're sleeping through the night, still successful, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to say.
No, that's a good point to bring up too, because my son is always he's always been an early riser. It just is the way it is.
Very common.
But the one thing I will say is he gets his sleep. Once he's asleep, he does not wake up.
Yeah.
And if he does, it's usually because he's sick or there's some issue.
Something's wrong.
And so...
Which is easier to know when something is wrong, because if they never wake up, when they do wake up randomly, it's a lot more likely that it's due to something.
That's just getting greedy. That's expecting your kid to sleep. You know what I mean? Like, listen.
Some kids will sleep through when they're ill too, because like that's what they're...
He does that too. It's mainly if there's... I know he's really sick now because he gets up only if he has that, because he knows really well to sleep. But yeah, 6:30, 6 to 6:30 has always been his time. So I'm not going to push that on him because that's just who he is.
And he's getting super solid sleep, it sounds like, before that, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, no wonder he's getting up so
Exactly. What's considered like newborn sleep training, and then what's considered toddler sleep training?
And I'll talk a little bit about like different options people have to tackle these problems, because maybe you have multiple children or whatever. So we have a newborn program. It's online. It's great. All these things are on babysleeptrainer.com, which I'm sure will be all over this description. But so if you go to the website, you can see there's that program, right? So it's going to be really good for families who are, I would say, between 0 and 16 weeks. A lot of families choose to start it like maybe a week or two before the baby's born. It's really, really great.
Hold on. Like sleep training or like understanding?
Yeah, so it's not sleep training, right? But so what I was about to say is, when you have never had a baby before, even if you've read a million books or not or whatever, right? Like it's like it's astonishing that there really isn't like an instructional manual that the hospital sends you home with. That's kind of how I feel about the newborn program. Like I put everything in there that I know about newborns and their sleep. And there are certain things, like I'll say my number one biggest tip when it comes to newborn sleep is that once they're, let's say somewhere between 4 to 6 or 7 weeks, once they're out of that like truly sleeps all of the time, no matter where you are stage, let's say from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you really want to make sure they don't sleep more than 2 hours at a single stretch. Don't ever let them take a nap. I don't care what the circumstances, unless they're ill, right? And you can actually choose to do whatever you want, but my suggestion would be that you not allow them to sleep longer than 2 hours, right? That one tip alone tends to correlate with like really quickly getting like decently longer stretches of sleep overnight. And like that, there's a lot of other things that you can be doing that have nothing to do with sleep training. It's just managing their schedule or how they're eating and all this stuff. So this is a newborn program, and that's up until 16 weeks, counting from their due date. If you have a baby that's 16 weeks of age or older, but not yet able to climb out of their crib, you'll have like 3-year-olds that are still in their crib, or, you know, I would say somewhere between around that age. Then there's just like the traditional, more like infant style sleep training. And there's online programs for that are truly, truly excellent. The Baby Sleep Trainer Plus Support program is like excellent. It's my favorite. It's like my life's work that I've created with my team, because you can use it, anyone can use it anywhere and be really, really successful, and there's follow-up support. And then you can always work with me one-on-one, and the one-on-one package is on the website, and I only do the one-on-one consultation for toddlers, because it is oddly, like, even though it's so formulaic and usually works so quickly, and the amount of follow-up support I do tends to be lower with toddler families, it is just super hard to like be like, and then you're gonna close the door, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like too much for families, and they need that person to be like, I promise,
I agree,
it's safe. And there's a lot of other elements we haven't even gotten into about like making sure the room is safe, and like all of this other stuff that actually is really, really important.
Which that can be saved for if and when you guys, you know.
But I mean, it's just, that's where it's like, does your child have this struggle? Do they have this? And that's where we really customize.
But it was also like, exactly to that point too. It was like a 24/7 concierge service from the time when we started it, which was great because she checked in on me, I checked in on her, and I was like, listen, I'm doing this, is this right? You know, and I felt...
And I tell my families to reach out to me, like, again, as long as I sleep like a normal amount overnight, and families almost always know what to do overnight, right? It's usually bedtime or during the day that they're struggling. But if I've texted people back like on ski lifts in Hawaii.
Do you ever do in-home consultations?
I don't do in-home consultations intentionally, because so I feel like now that you've gone through this, you can understand. Had I been in your home and been holding your hand literally the entire time, and then I left 3 days in, what would have happened on day 4 when the dynamic of your child has changed, and the woman who is here having mommy and daddy do all this stuff isn't here anymore, and now you have to stand alone and do it. It is I purposefully do not, with any client of any age group, no matter how much someone is willing to pay me, I will like never go into their home to do it. I feel very strongly that they have to do it on their own.
I actually love that concept, because it's the same thing with anything, changing your lifestyle, your diet, anything that it's up to you yourself to do that, right?
It's because I know that for your long-term success, you will be more successful in the long term if the parent does it on their own. They have a higher likelihood of long-term success. in my experience and in my opinion. Certainly there are probably coaches who do in-home consultations and are very successful, and I'm not speaking to them, but with my program, you're much better if you do it on your own from the beginning. And I support you. Like, even if you use my online programs, there is sufficient support. You know what you need to do.
I, can attest to that based off of experience, but that is a really good reason. And I brought that up just because I was reluctant when I found you online. Like, why is this online only? It doesn't make any sense. Or why is it via Skype?
Yeah.
And now I get it. So makes sense. When is it like no longer sleep training?
Oh, good question. So I will work with children up until the age of about 3.5, sometimes 4. I have heard families use this method for kids up to like 5. I think maybe once or twice I've worked with a 5-year-old. And then I have a colleague who's a psychologist that I refer older children to, because I'm not saying it won't work, but I just don't feel comfortable into that age group, and I would never ever ask someone to do something that I was not like 100% confident was like totally safe and sound. So I would say up to like 4 years old or something.
I am such a believer because I've obviously lived through it, and so I commend you for what you do. Thank you for bestowing us with all of this expertise.
That's why we created the online programs, because I really feel like this is a problem that disproportionately affects women. I feel if you work outside the home, or even if you don't, it really, really falls on our shoulders to deal with this problem. There's very little support. There's a lot of stigma. It it robs us of our memories that we're forming with our children, because we're not even sleeping, and I am just here to help.
For anybody that's out there that is reluctant or thinks that sleep training is a myth or it's not for you, maybe it still isn't. Like Natalie has said, obviously to each our own, but if it is something you've been interested in thinking about, I highly, highly recommend her services. We did the online one, coaching, the one-on-one coaching, which was for toddlers. So I'm gonna list everything below as far as her YouTube page, which now has some really great series on there.
Yeah, it's really great. Honestly, we put a lot of effort into YouTube recently as well. We have a ton of videos on there. I just really want to help everybody get there.
Which is great.
I really, really, really do.
Now she has resources not only on her website, but on her YouTube page, which I'm gonna link below, and also babysleeptrainer.com again, which is her website. So check that out if you guys have any questions.
Instagram. Baby Sleep Trainer is on Instagram.
Exactly.
All over the place.
I'll tag all of that below, but also if you guys have any questions for my experience as a client, or if you have anything for Natalie, obviously please leave them in the comments below. We will be sure to get back to you, because this is a topic that I think I've been wanting to do forever, and I'm so glad that we finally connected and made this happen. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. We will see you guys next time. Bye.